We are now on to some local success stories. So one of the things we knew that there's groups in the region that have some things that are working really well, have done some projects, have tried different things that have worked well. They've been for getting people involved and engagement and so on. So we wanted to allow some of the groups with some of these programs to give a quick overview. Now you've only got 5 minutes each, so I will start leaning fairly hard. First, Jim Dehennon, Desiree Harker from the Middle Murray Blackberry Action Group.
Hi everyone, pardon me, my name is Jim Dehennon and with me is Desiree Harker. We talked a lot of discussion earlier about the many hats we wear. I'm president of the Wisers Creek Talgano Landcare Group. I'm also president of the Middle Murray Landcare Network and president of the Middle Murray Blackberry Action Group. I'm a member of the RLF steering group and I'm a past president and a member of the Wodonga Grassland Society. With Desiree, she's a Landcare facilitator for Mitta Valley Landcare Group, secretary for the Mitta Group, secretary for Middle Murray Landcare Network and vice president of the Middle Murray Blackberry Action Group. So you can see we're very dedicated people. We want to talk about the Blackberry Action Group, and I believe it's one of the best success stories I've ever been involved in. Going back a couple of Blackberry seasons ago, we were approached by the BBT signalling funding initiative to form a new Blackberry Action Group, and I think there are about 14 currently operating in Victoria. We then canvassed our member groups of Middle Murray, and a lot of the people were most reluctant to take on the challenge because there was some past history where things hadn't worked out too well. They were a bit scared of what might happen, what the commitment might be. So we had to soldier our way on through that. And then in 2012 we were told the VBT funding was successful, and we understood this then to be a 3-year program. We formed a steering group. There was a broad community representation from M2M member groups. It's a collaborative approach, so I'm a real believer in the collaborative approach where we have people working right across the network in a common cause, and this cause happens to be helping to control blackberries. The steering groups formed of 5 Landcare groups, clear forestry groups, DPI, DSC, Tawong Shire and Parks Victoria. So with the whole idea, people working together and eradicating that so-called neighbour from hell that most people talk about out there. We developed comprehensive terms of reference, and this is where Desiree's been absolutely fantastic with her expertise and experience in doing these things. We have terms of reference about how we operate and the roles and responsibilities. We identified target areas to focus our efforts and important use of the limited resources. Not up already, Tom, is it? Oh. We had to develop the community approach, all about providing community support and applying community pressure with neighbours working together. And what I neglected to say earlier, we're actually doing this as a joint presentation, so I'll hand over to Desiree for the moment.
Okay. Part of my role with the Blackberry Group is very much the sort of operational role. We started off with the recruitment of our project officer, and that's where the bulk of our funding actually goes to in terms of engaging that person. We've actually got our current project officer in the audience with us, Paula Sheehan, and she's been doing a fantastic job this year. But Paula's not our first project officer. We actually have had 2 in this very short life that we've had of 18 months. But the important thing about this is my background's in HR, so it was no big deal in terms of developing a recruitment toolkit. So it's not just a one-off process, it's actually a repeatable process. But I think what Jim and I found in the first round was most interesting. We actually had candidates withdraw. And Greg Hayes and Jim sort of said, gee whiz, Des, this is a very tough process, isn't it? But what it did was it actually gave people a very good idea of what the role was, what the expectations were, and they actually found out that that wasn't for them. So we didn't go through heartbreak of having the wrong people being employed. Which was very important. The process actually also allows people to show their competencies and their talents in a number of multidimensional ways. So it's not just an interview, and I won't go into it given we have the 5-minute approach. There's a contract of services to appoint an independent contractor, an induction and training process depending on what the person brings or doesn't bring to the job. And most importantly, what we have developed as a group is an operational toolkit, is another sort of what I like to call as toolkits. And that's a whole series of templates for our 3-year work plan agreements, for our progress reporting, for our property mapping standards, and in phase 2 of this 18-month program that we've operated on so far, also a participant survey. So we can go back to the people who are actually in the program, who signed up early in the early part, and actually get their feedback. There's also guidelines and an application form for incentive payments. So there's a whole toolkit of information that you don't have to reinvent again, which is the important thing. The other part of the important documentation that we've done, it is a 3-year time frame, and I'll let Jim give you the bomb on that later. Our strategy and our action plan actually sets out the Blackberry Group's structure, its operating framework, and most importantly it provides the direction and objectives for our group, and that plan is also directed at our community audience. So it's not just us knowing about what we're doing, it's also directed towards the community knowing what the group is about. It was developed by the steering group, and it really demonstrates the commitment from those stakeholders that we have and what they bring to the project. The other thing too is you often get stakeholders around the table there that are coming as their nominees from various organisations. What the plan also shows by its content is to those people's bosses and the people further up the hierarchy why it's important and the reason for those people to be there. I won't go on, we're getting wound up already, but there's also communication strategy, there's landholder work plans, etc. That's all of the sorts of things that have gone into this process. I'll hand over to Jim for the Blackberry Field Day.
Just very quickly, then we ran a Blackberry Field Day, which was very successful. The whole idea there was to work with in a partnership with a local Landcare group and the network. We had 70 odd attendees, and there was a demonstration of some chemical control of the blackberry, so it worked very, very effectively. The whole idea there was to give people more information. There's a need out there. People say we need more information on how to control this problem and how to go about it. Our achievements to date, we've exceeded our target of 50 voluntary work plan agreements, and once again Paula's done an absolutely fantastic job for her component of that. That's been done over the 2 blackberry control seasons. There's mapped over 10,000 hectares of private property and added this to the data to the VBT database. We surveyed our participants from season 1, and we'll continue to survey from the season 2. And we've had strong support from all the stakeholders, etc. Just very quickly, Tom, and I promise we'll go after this, is just the lessons learned. Ensure you have a good governance system in place, terms of reference, sound meeting processes, clear direction, user-friendly work plans, and they must be workable and realistic, so they're actually implemented by the landholder and not just the dust gatherer. Be aware of the funding constraints. As I said earlier, we thought we had a 3-year funding arrangement, and it turned out it's not, so we're currently seeking more funding, and we're certainly hoping we can get it to continue the program on. We selected priorities areas for Paula and Andrew prior to that to work in, because it's a big area and you need to have a select priority areas where the major blackberry problems were. So in essence, strong leadership, clear direction and free communication with your project officer is essential. Des, anything you want to add to that?
I guess the other thing that we've found too is, and in contrast with a lot of the things that we've heard today about using social media and all the modern forms of communication, there is no substitute for pressing the flesh, and there is no substitute for the face-to-face contact. And when you have a group like this, and all you have on the ground as a project officer, it's really important that you have all sorts of mechanisms to get that feedback. So that's probably the other lesson learned.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Next in line we have Narelle Martin, who's going to outline the Giant Pumpkin Competition and Harvest Festival as a completely different way of operating.
Now for something completely different. So we had a Giant Pumpkin Competition Harvest Festival. Just briefly, Burgoigee Creek, now I should say some say Burgoigee and some say Burgoigee, and I don't care. Can go either way. The Landcare Group was formed 25 years ago, has had a significant impact on the landscape, as you can see here. It's got innovative programs going on in relation to pasture for climate change. And one of the comments I'd make is that a number of the people who formed the group are still in the group, who are still active in the group. So that's a long time and long commitment. In terms of the location, for those who might not know it, it's the corner between, in the middle of the triangle between Everton, Beechworth and Myrtleford. So it's that area just there in terms of location. Why do you want to have a festival? This came from a number of different areas. First off, we're a very small community. Our community doesn't have a school, it doesn't have a sign, so as you're driving through you wouldn't know that was Burgoigee or Bowman's Forest or any of that stuff. The money that gets raised in the community is from a very small people, the same people doing all the work, putting all the money in. And often that money goes outside the community. Red Cross is a good example, decisions made in Melbourne where the money goes. The hall, the Bowman's Burgoigee Hall, has been completely rebuilt, but not many people knew that. So we have this fabulous facility, which people didn't know about. We also have an ageing population and we need to expand networks. And the explicit purpose that we had in terms of some of our documentation that we had to put together is to increase resilience, community networks and capacity. So it's all about building up those networks and the like, and to make money. So we have a steering group. This has been established under the Landcare group. Our group also has a Garden Wanderers group, so we've got something else going on where people who are not traditionally interested in Landcare actually get together and we wander around literally to other people's gardens and have a look, and usually come back with cuttings and all sorts of things. Landcare group provided insurance cover, very important in this sort of situation. Also provided financial sponsorship, and we made reports through to Landcare group in terms of the process. And the Landcare coordinator was also a member of the coordinating committee, and that's our very serious steering group. Bowman's Burgoigee Hall, I've got lots of happy snaps, so I can whiz through all this, should do the 5 minutes quite well. So as you can see, we have an architect who actually lives in the community who donated his services to redesign the hall, which is like a huge volunteer amount of money, if you think about it, going in. So we have this rebuilt hall with pumpkins. Logistics-wise, we decided to have a pumpkin competition. We wanted to celebrate local foods. We literally sat down and thought about what gets grown and what gets made just around our area, and it was an amazing list. We had outside vendor stores with a food focus. We charged $25 each. We had community stores as well with 10 different fundraising activities by the community. My husband happened to be the guy in charge of the float and the money, and he was just tearing his hair out that he had to go and do 10 or 12 different collections of money from everybody. We made sure it was a family-friendly focus, and we made a deliberate decision to have no alcohol, and that included no wineries represented either. It was a major learning exercise. We actually emphasised throughout, because people said, do you think we're biting off too much of a tree? I said, oh yeah, we might be, but that's okay, we'll make a few mistakes, that's okay. Constantly sought feedback, constantly sought suggestions, what do you think, how will this go? And we literally said, we've got our L plates on this, none of us have done it before, so we'll just see how we go. Who knew you needed council approval? So there's a whole lot of stuff involved in that. You need time to grow pumpkins. We had approaching sponsors. I found, because I did most of that stuff, difficult to get storehold. It was, again, a great learning curve. There's a huge number of farmer markets, and while I was concentrating on making sure we didn't actually compete with the Beechworth market, which is biggie, you didn't want the same weekend. Who knew? I obviously didn't. That a lot of the local businesses and farm providers actually went off to Violet Town. That was a big one for them, which was on the next day or similar, and that a lot of them also came up to the Wodonga market. So now I know that, so we'll shift it. We also had no money for advertising, which in the end was not a big deal, but there's an amazing number of non-expensive, free places to put down information and get the word out, and that was really interesting to learn. We did get sponsorship. Thank you very much to the Regional Landcare Facility, who actually provided funding for our poster. and that was great. We also had the Burgoigee Creek Landcare Group and WAW talking about sponsorship. It was like, how do you do sponsorship? I rang them up, said, what do I do? So that was all good. Happy Snaps. So we've got pumpkins, garden things, really nice clown picture there. So a couple of young people dressed up as clowns to help with the kids' activities, lots of kids' activities, all of which were free. A maze made out of straw was a huge hit, who knew? Boys went on the top, girls went in the middle. And lots of people who we didn't know came into the community, enjoyed the space, enjoyed the afternoon tea. We had a fabulous fresh scones made on site, and had good fun. So we also had pumpkins, and tiny story. It took a little while for the tractor to turn up because I don't think the tractor man thought we'd ever have any big enough to need the tractors. So our winner had 112 kilos. He got the 112 plus the total one. Our youth group, their largest pumpkin was 76.9 kilos. Now, funnily enough, this young lass, she had 2 pumpkins on the one vine. Apparently the rule is you only have 1 pumpkin on one vine, so she would have blown them being out of the water in terms of the price, the size. How do you measure success? Different people were involved leading up to the day, so all sorts of different people became involved, and on the day, and they hadn't been involved in terms of Landcare activities. We learnt new skills and made new connections. People came. I had two really nightmarish things that woke me up. Nobody would come or too many would come. And as it was, people came. We had fun. We had excellent feedback in relation to the guests. I got one of those like wedding things, you know, when you write in visitors book thing. Plus we had a Facebook page. People at the day, I never crossed my mind, requested seeds. They left their names so they could get seeds for next year's festivals, and we made a profit. So we made over $2,500 in profit for the day, which we thought was pretty good because we were wondering whether we'd break even or what. We've had a debrief. We have agreed to have a festival again in 2014. We'll be looking at additional activities for adults and children. For example, we decided we wouldn't have music this time. We think we'll do live music next time. So we'll work our way through that one. And yes, so for those of you who are into pumpkins, please feel free to grow pumpkins for next year. Won't be that weekend. It's probably going to weekend later. But it was a great experience, great learning curve. It was all, let's see how this goes, and we'll give it a shot. And I think it went really well. Thanks.
Our next presentation is, Peter, are you doing this on behalf of Belinda? I've got about 2 photos I could find. Landcare in the Kiwa, just specifically on some of the different aspects that the group's been working on in recent years.
We had a very successful project which was doing it with dung from Omeo to Corowa, so it covered both sides of the area. We've actually got some earthworms. The other thing that Belinda's been involved with is Tasmanian giant earthworms, which aren't to be confused with the scrub worms in Victoria. They're actually European worms. And we found they did very well in Chukpu. So there is a number of sites. So just like the dung beetles, we've got a number of nursery sites. And we're finding with Belinda had her first site, and in less than 2 years, they've actually spread more than 500 metres from where they were released. And the idea with both the dung beetles and the earthworms is that recycling of material and turning over the soil naturally and aerating soil. So it's an ongoing program, and we're still fighting for money to continue with some more trial work and some more releases. And what's exciting is that Syro have got 2 new dung beetles, which we hope to release sometime in the next 18 months. And they're ones that are going to be spring active. So all those little bush flies that come down from Queensland in the spring won't have any poo to breed in, and we'll have both the fact that we're recycling that nutrient and a lack of those little bush flies. And Belinda's been a real driving force behind that. We had a market not far from in the Kiwa Valley, and we actually had a stall there. and we had the dung beetles on display, and the interest from people with that, seeing the dung beetles in there and the identification books, and people realising these just weren't scarab beetles that were flying around their lights at night, and they actually were active, and to encourage them, and the kids really were responsive to those field days. And when she takes those to the school groups, they're fascinated with them. The key was also, as we said, is 30 years since it was formed in August, and we're starting to get a flood of entries in. And Belinda, again, is a driving force for our big tree competition. So those who aren't aware, we've got the biggest tree in the catchment, which Neil McCarthy's judging. And anyone can find a tree provided it's in the Kiwi catchment and enter it on the website. We're also for their favourite tree, and this could be a tree that the family's spent time with and has grown up with, or it might be a tree that has birds that come in at certain times of the year. So anyone that can write a good story about their favourite tree in the catchment, we're open to. We've also got that open for schools and also for the best revegetation that's taken part in the valley in the last 30 years. What we're hoping is that this will have quite a lot of enthusiasm about people recognising those trees and their value in the environment, and that we really should treasure them and look after them. And we're hoping next year that we may spread it so that it'll go across the whole of the northeast as a challenge, so all the catchments might be looking at the biggest tree in the northeast and the best tree or their favourite tree or the best revegetation. And we'll see how it goes from there. We might even challenge the Gippsland people or whoever from that. So it's something to look forward to.
Tony Marsh, and we also have Ron Herbert from the Barrandoota Landcare Group. Now this group's one of the subgroups of the Kiwi catchment, so it's the one, Barrandoota, for those who aren't aware of it, is sort of currently a, what do they call it, a sleeping suburb for Wodonga, but it's not, it's sort of separate, and it's surrounded by park and roadside reserves with some very valuable vegetation.
Tony Marsh, I'm president of Barrandoota Landcare. I got a bit scared when they asked me to do a presentation on the topic of success stories, because I start thinking about what the hell have we been successful at? Yeah, two things that I think we've deserved to be proud about, and one is our Nestbox program, and you'll see in these series of photos what we're talking about here. I should have introduced Ron. Ron Herbert is our Nestbox manufacturer, and if you are wanting to get in touch with Ron, just Google Northeast Nestboxes and you'll find his website and his contact details. So the other thing that I think we've really been successful at is running an annual Planet Ark tree planting and revegetation day. This year will be our 14th consecutive event, and we engage the local schools, 3 schools and students every year. We've got a nature trail activity or project happening at Frayne College, and we've also installed 10 nest boxes at Frayne College recently. So I won't talk any more about the projects that we run, except to identify this particular device that I've got hanging here, and that's a Nestbox camera, not surprisingly, designed to highly extendable. That's just a cheap Kmart Bunnings extendable pole camera on the top. Unfortunately, the batteries are flat in the device here, so I can't show you actually the way it works. But obviously, you hold the monitor display there. It's great for working with kids because you can hand it around, and you can have multiple handheld monitors as well. So you simply poke the camera up into the Nestbox opening, turn the power on, and you get to see what's in the box from the device that's handheld. It will take photos, it will take video. Not fantastic quality, but that's not the whole point of the exercise. It's a relatively affordable device for Landcare groups. I think we've got 2. I should have brought the other one in as well. The second one is a flexible, bendable type of device that's not mounted on a pole like this, so you can poke it down into natural hollows. It'll even fit up into the bat boxes that we've got as well. Bats are not one of our major success stories when it comes to the nest box projects, unfortunately. The only time I've recorded a bat in a nest box was meant to be a mammal's box and not a bat's box. So that's a work in progress, working out how to get the bats to use our nest boxes. Kids love the nest box project, obviously. Easy to get them involved and they enjoy.
Definitely a
Family-friendly event. And as you can see, you can carry the handheld monitor to people who may or may not be able to get out and climb a ladder or whatever. Climbing ladders is a dangerous exercise, and one of the great things with this device is that minimises the need to do that. You can check out what's in a box and then decide whether you really want to get up and have a look in the ladder. Squirrel gliders and sugar gliders are our main use animal. The boxes program is designed really for tuans or brush-tailed phascogales. They've got a real problem though, or the males do particularly. We're always challenged, us males, aren't we, Tom? They only last 12 months, only live for 12 months. So keeping a viable population of tuans or brush-tailed phascogales in the local environment is a real challenge. These are squirrel gliders, not tuans. You can, of course, access these photos and other documents relating to our project on our Gateway website, Boundary Landcare. I'm going to hand over to Ron, who's our nest box manufacturer guru, and he will tell you a little bit about that process.
We're up in the vicinity of 400 boxes at Barranduda. It's been a huge success, a success rate of about 60%, which in anyone's language, using sort of nature as opposed to timber, is quite good. We lose a few boxes because of feral bees, sparrows and starlings. There's been quite a few alterations since the last time that I've done some of this, and I see a few familiar faces out there, and thank you very much again. Schools take these up quite readily, the children take them up quite readily as being an education tool. I suggest Landcare as a group or as a whole body gets a little bit more vocal in the terms of developers. They like to develop the land and take the trees down. Well, how about $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 to put a few nest boxes up, and also the trees if you like. But I've never seen a developer as such as yet put his hand in his pocket for nest boxes. So I think it's an opportunity there that we should, and the developer should, sort of come hand in hand and get together with. There's not only squirrel gliders, there's birds, there's owls, and there's bats, and so it's it's open. Start with whatever you really want to put up. Most children like the squirrel gliders and the sugar gliders because it's small and cuddly. They can get up the box if they on a very sturdy ladder, safety, and look inside and actually view the animal itself, or view the animals. It's 4 or 5 together, normally with the mother. It's quite a pleasant thing to look at. The boxes are normally about 3.5 to 4 metres high, no higher. It becomes totally unstable then, as far as looking at them, unless you use a pole camera. Feral bees, as I said, will reduce the amount of boxes that are usable. As at this moment, I know of no positive sort of way to get rid of them. I'm tracking down a nest box manufacturer in WA who thinks he's got the answer, but sometimes secrets of this nature are very hard to get. So if someone out there has got that secret and they want to tell me, I've got a few business cards in my pocket and I'll be quite happy to share. walking trails is another opportunity to put them up. You can, if you belong to a walking group or you know a walking group, they can get a bit of grant money together and, getting a bit of grant money together to buy some boxes and put them up. I'm not suggesting I make them. There are men's sheds and there's other groups far able to make them as well. They're a good day for family to walk along the trails with the children and bird watchers also, to see what's coming and going if you want to put up bird boxes, and also to monitor whatever you see go in the box or coming out the box. It would help if you saw sparrows or starlings obviously going, and then you could tell the group. And when it was put up, you'd be surprised. You do forget after a period of time, what did we put that up 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago? And obviously people who walk the track can recognise it as being a Landcare product rather than just a wooden box. So I think that's a very good idea. You could have a phone number on it, I suppose. In the case of emergency, it falls down or breaks up. We also number them, and we also do a GPS on them, and we also do a, what do you call it? A computer. Database. To say what size the hole is, we use 3 sizes of the hole, and we use 3 sizes of the hole and 2 sides of the box to put them on. So do they like the side hole, do they like the front entrance, and so on and so forth. So you can make it a very sort of entertaining, I suppose, in a sense, or you make it an educational tool as well. Safety is paramount importance. I will push that. Is that enough? Okay. Thank you very much.
If you really wanted to know about nesting boxes, look at Ron's site. He's had a large number of different boxes he's created over the years. Some have been more successful than others. And just as another plug for their Kiwa catchment, technology not only goes to pole cameras. Our latest venture was now we've got a drone, so we can actually fly over our sites and take photographs of them.